Welcome to another episode of the Halas Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
And I am back after a 2-week absence. We had some exciting guests fill in for me here at the Halas Huddle Podcast as I was off gallivanting around in Florida rather than watching football. Thank you to Bob Weiss for filling in week 1, and a big shout out to Julian Onayemi for filling in week 2. They both were way more than adequate. So again, thank you to you too, and I'm glad to be back here on the Halas Huddle Podcast. I believe we are on episode 14. I had a question mark on that because I couldn't remember. That's what happens when you go on vacation for 2 weeks.
I was just joking, actually. Like, the very first episode I was on was episode 8, and you said the Ocho, and you were going on. And then I was like, I bet you he doesn't know how to count that high in Spanish. So, like, we've already reached the point in our numbers that I doubt you know what they are in Spanish.
I can actually count to one.
Okay. Catorce, right?
Yeah. Don't say. Yeah.
All right. See? Our episodes are going up. So, yeah, I definitely enjoyed hosting with both Bob and Julian, but it's great having you back. And in fact, not only are we doing the show together, but we actually watched the game together. Yes. And funny enough, your son did call us out because he's like, I thought you guys weren't supposed to yell at the TV. So if you're listening to this, you watched the game or at least, radio or heard about it. But it was definitely a game where we did a little bit of yelling at the TV, maybe more than a little.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where we were, yelling at multiple facets too. I mean, at one point I was yelling at the refs. At other points I was yelling at coaching. At other points I'm yelling at Justin Fields.
A lot of the points you were yelling at Justin Fields. So we're definitely going to break down Fields' game. I think we were also yelling at responses to people on Twitter and somebody saying, was Roquan Smith out there? I'm like, they might not be watching the right channel. He was out there. He was making plays the beginning of the game, the middle of the game, and, of course, a huge play at the end. So I think Roquan, he bet on himself this year. First 2 games, people were questioning either, effort or just where he was making his tackles.
Stamina, maybe.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't in the best of shape with the hold-in. But today we saw the whole package from Roquan. Tackles for loss, in on so many plays. Big plays, and then, of course, the biggest play with the pick at the very end of the game.
I would have liked a touchdown, but, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Well, because you had no faith the offense could do anything, and they didn't even have faith in themselves. There's so much to talk about. Yeah. So where do you want to start, Rob?
Okay, well, let's start with the thing that happened very early. David Montgomery goes down with an injury. Not only is it called a knee injury, it's a knee and an ankle. There is good news, according to Matt Eberflus already, that everything looks to be okay. I don't know exactly what that means for the long run. We'll see. I think even last year he had a sprained knee and missed a few games. So I think the big thing here, though, is Khalil Herbert, right? Khalil Herbert came in, he stepped up, and I mean, we've said it a couple times, and I'm going to keep saying it. The running back position is just not a valued position in the NFL. And, Khalil Herbert 2 weeks in a row now has just kind of proved that he can fill in just fine with David Montgomery not being here in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, we both are Khalil Herbert fans, and I think that doesn't mean we want to just hand him the reins, especially because of Montgomery having a significant injury. I think best case scenario is Montgomery's injury is minor and he, is close to back to what he is by next week or the week after that. And you have this 2-person attack because they're both just amazing runners. Montgomery, I think, a little better in like pass protection and things like that, but that might just be a lack of experience on Herbert's part. I think he's ready to take on a bigger role. He certainly did in today's game. And, they needed that. They needed 150-plus yards from him because of the continued ineptitude of anything on the passing game.
I saw one of the beat reporters, I'm going to blank on who it was, tweeted out that the Chicago Bears had the most rushing yards that they've had since 1984. And it's like, well, that's kind of fitting, seeing that the team basically played today like it was 1984.
Yeah, I mean, a chunk of those yards are Justin Fields runs, so like he should get credit for that. But so much of the emphasis on the run is a lack of any kind of confidence or faith in the passing game, whether that's receivers getting open, whether it's Getsy calling plays that are safe, easy connections. I just keep not seeing that. Or Fields holding on to the ball too long, not knowing when to check down. I mean, defenses are very prepared now for the play action bootleg to the naked side.
Yeah.
It's not naked. There's a player waiting for him.
Yeah,
it
happened, 4 times today? I mean,
so I think we're really going to have to hope that Montgomery's okay. And actually, when you brought up Eberflus saying that it doesn't look that bad, I think we have to find out, and maybe you know more than I do on this, but what type of coach is he in regards to injury information? Because I think there's a whole way coaches go about that. You know how Belichick goes about it. Nagy was always acting like no one was ever injured, and then they'd miss 5 weeks, you know? So hopefully he's the kind of coach where apparently he's just sharing what he knows, and it actually is good news. And yeah,
I think we've already seen enough to know that he believes it's a competitive advantage for the other team to know what's going on with your injuries, and he's not going to give more than he needs to give. So where that leads us with this.
So saying he looks not that bad means the Giants, as soon as they're done with their Monday night game, are going to have to think, oh, he's not that bad.
I think that's exactly what the purpose was here. And I would be very surprised if we see Montgomery play in week 4.
Okay. Well, that would be bad news. But, I mean, Herbert's capable. Ebner,
I mean, he had his moments, and he had his moments where he looked like a rookie, and he's just putting the ball on the ground. And
it was crazy. Okay, so I brought up Eberflus as a coach in regards to injuries. What about his decision with a minute left in the half to – I mean, I'm speechless as to what even to describe that as. The offense hadn't shown you much, but the running game was gaining yards at a good clip. You had 3 timeouts. And I believe they were down 4 at the time. I mean, you knew you weren't getting the ball in the second half. So, to me, try something. Maybe get into field goal range, hit a field goal.
Yeah,
but to just completely not even attempt to really go after you were advancing the ball, the crowd's booing, and I'm thinking, what's that statement mean? So what was your take about that?
So I loved your tweet on that situation, by the way, where you said that they needed to replace the T in the hits principle with timeout.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's frustrating because you saw Lovie Smith help Chicago out by taking a timeout on 3rd and 1 in hopes that he was going to get his team the ball back.
Right. So you end up with 4 timeouts on this drive if you wanted.
Correct. And Khalil Herbert runs a very nice run. They get the first down with significant amount of yardage. They're still fairly deep in their own territory, but you have 40 seconds left, and you're not taking a timeout. You run some half-assed.
Well, because you're rushing.
Right.
They had the timeouts to just call a timeout,
get
your play in, get your personnel in. Yep. They scramble up, almost looked like they were going to get a pre-snap penalty.
Yeah, it was awful. It was just awful clock management, awful just all around. And it's frustrating and I showed you a clip during halftime where we saw a similar situation happen with Philadelphia. And granted, they were a little bit closer in field position, but Jalen Hurts from a little bit behind the 50, a little bit less than 40 seconds remaining. I want to say it was 33 on the clock. They take a timeout. He throws a ball down to the 1 yard. They ended up scoring a touchdown before the end of the half. There's no quick plays. The clock management was just bad. There's no up tempo. Justin Fields clearly doesn't look comfortable. I don't know. It's just things that they could be doing to help him out. and help the offense out, and I'm not seeing it. And I'm not trying to give excuses for Justin Fields either. And we'll, like you said, we'll talk more about him in depth. But like, this was a bad game for him, and this was a game where he was supposed to take a step forward.
Absolutely. This is a team. Finally, you're playing a team where talent-wise, maybe we have the advantage in certain areas, and that means that you should have been in command of this game, or at least have the confidence to make meaningful attempts when the opportunities present themselves. And it was disappointing to see on so many levels. I want to talk later, like Lovey being Lovey ends up helping us out later in the game with a horrible challenge, because his style of challenging is, I didn't like what happened, so I'm going to challenge it. Fields' knee is pretty clearly down. Yeah. There's a fumble after that, but that was a dumb challenge, which cost them a timeout. And then I told you they're going to need that timeout later. Yeah. And sure enough, they did. So we talked about Roquan, stepping up as a player. I think it overshadowed something that you mentioned early in the game, so I want to throw this over to you. But can you talk about the play of Eddie Jackson early on?
Yeah, Eddie Jackson, I keep tweeting it. I keep talking about it. He was a guy that I thought was very undervalued going into the season. I think he's undervalued by a lot of Bears fans every season. I've heard Matt Bowen talk about him constantly, about how fans they want these big splash plays, but what he's able to do on the field does more than what they see. And he has had some issues, obviously, with taking the wrong angles when it comes to things, or trying to strip the ball rather than actually make a tackle. But everyone talks about his missed tackles. His missed tackle rate's gone down every year since 2018, when everyone thought he was elite. He had another good game today. He forced a fumble that they didn't recover.
They're getting good at stripping the ball, but not so good at recovering it.
Yeah, that happened.
Which is ridiculous. But he stripped the ball, and then if you remember, I think it was either late first quarter or so. But anyway, Houston was getting ready to score another touchdown after bad pick by Fields. Yeah. And then he gets that batted ball. He's in the right spot, intercepts it.
Yeah. Number 2. By the way, for him this year.
Absolutely. So, and then at that point in the broadcast, they say the Bears are 11-0 in games that Eddie Jackson had a pick. No clue. I mean, obviously, when he plays well, that helps the team.
Right.
But now they're 12-0.
Yes.
And I mean, he played well. Then all of a sudden, we didn't see him on the field. So, do we know?
He did come back.
Okay.
So I think he's fine. I'm not sure if it was an injury. I'm not sure if it was just him trying to catch his breath. But he did come back. And yeah, the defense was spotty, but they showed up when they needed to. Yeah. Thanks to a couple key guys, Eddie Jackson being one, Roquan Smith being the other.
Late in the game, we saw Dominique Robinson again showing up. So that's great to see. I want to shift this to something, and this is the last thing I think before we then go in depth on Fields. So that's still coming. Right. But before the game, you, myself, and actually Julian were discussing, okay, what should we see or do we need to see out of Darnell Mooney today? And I said he should have 5 or more catches, 50 or more yards, and 1 or more touchdown. Missed on all of them.
Did he even have 5 targets?
I think he ended up with 2 catches, I want to say, which maybe was on 4 targets. One of those targets was like a screen designed to him where there's a defender directly between him and Fields. Yeah. It could have been another pick. Yeah. So,
and then they did the same thing on the opposite side of the field.
And he dropped
later. And it actually was setting up the play nicely.
Yeah, it was a good play. And he dropped it. I think he changed from his orange gloves. Like, these orange gloves didn't do the trick. And then drops the very next throw to him. So he has looked horrible. Yeah. And the way they are scheming him looks horrible. Yeah. So what are you thinking, Rob, on Mooney?
I mean, so it's hard to say with Mooney, and I think, we said we want to hold off on the Justin Fields talk, but I think Justin Fields is playing a big part in why Darnell Mooney isn't looking good, because there were some missed opportunities in the Packers game. If you watch the All-22, where, the great flea flicker that he had to Equanimous St. Brown that went for 30 yards, it was like 15 yards after the catch. Had he stuck with his original first read to Mooney, Mooney actually had a nice go route, and he had the guy beat. It just took a little bit longer than I think Fields felt comfortable with, and he did have a guy in his face coming off.
That was like one of the uglier flea flickers I've seen.
Yeah,
it wasn't that good of a flea flicker.
I felt like he was too close.
Yeah, it was awkward. In fact, I had like looked away, so I didn't even truly know it was a flea flicker. Yeah. I just see Fields like awkwardly positioning, getting pressured. So I think that may have had something to do with him not hitting the read to Mooney. But just let's go back to this game. Like
this game, he wasn't.
This should have been the right, but this should have been the game. Like you said, you're going against Houston. They're not anything spectacular. They're an average team, probably below average, which is exactly where the Bears pretty much are.
Yeah, and from a
personnel
defending the run or defending the pass, they're an average defense. They're better at defending the pass than they are. So it had to have been a run heavy game. We knew that.
We're fine with that.
We knew that going into it. But, heard them talk about balance this week, and again, that balance wasn't there. And I know that dropbacks versus passing attempts is very different. I don't know. There's just things that they could be doing. There's things, we talked about like giving him some easy passes, get those completions going, get the confidence built up clearly. And I don't think any quarterback should have to deal with this because if you're good, you're good. He's struggling with some confidence right now. He's not throwing the ball.
So you mentioned confidence. You mentioned like, hey, get him a play to just get his confidence going. I just looked down at my notes. The very first thing I wrote, which I had forgotten about, they snapped the very first. They fumbled the very first snap of the game. Again. Sam and it's Mustafa, which means Patrick is still doing this weird rotation with Jenkins when you and I both want to just see Jenkins in there the whole time. So there's still just a lot of weird things going on with this team. Hopefully next week, Patrick is ready to snap. He becomes your center. He's locked in at center. Jenkins is a right guard. He's locked in at right guard. I mean, I don't know if it's going to make a big difference, but I don't want there to even be excuses as to why Fields might not be clicking. We need to know sooner than later what type of quarterback he is.
Yeah.
And that's not because, if he's bad, we need to draft one this year. I'm not even going to that. We have to learn about him as a player for the future of this team. And it's looking bad. They're 2-1. That's a surprise.
Yeah.
And he says, I only care about winning. And good. We're 2-1. But that's not going to sustain with this type of play.
They have to be the worst 2-1 team in the
NFL. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the NFL. I mean,
the Chiefs screwed us bad, but
we're the same record as the Chiefs.
How do they lose to the Colts, who have done they've done nothing? This is that Matt Ryan thing. He screwed us. We talked about it on the podcast. He screwed us. Had like 2 really bad games. We dropped him. Someone picks him up. I'm pretty sure it was Grant. He runs the table the whole year. Has like MVP weeks. And here it is.
But that just means it's a weird NFL. And the teams that are always parity, but there still are certain teams will be there because of the quarterback. Right. And the Bears haven't been that. We know it. We don't have to go through the list. Maybe you thought, we have Jay Cutler. We could be that. No, we are not.
Oh, we got
Mitch Trubisky. No. But Justin Fields, there still is this hope. But each and every time we see a game like this, and I'm sorry, I'm like one of the people who probably wants him to work out the most, not just because we're both Justins, but just I really want it to work. But a game like this, it's just hard to watch.
It's troubling to me because it makes me want to go back and redo my whole entire process because I had Justin Fields as the QB2 out of this draft behind Trevor Lawrence. And, I see guys that I was high on too, like Jalen Hurts. Like he's taking a step up. Tua, I wasn't as high on, but I did think he'd be a decent quarterback in the NFL. He's taking a step up. And I know everyone's saying, well, look at the team that they're putting around him now. Look at the offensive weapons that they got him. I get that. But Justin Fields is missing on targets that are there. Like as great as we've seen him throw the ball on, going back to the Pittsburgh game last year, like the play that he had to Darnell Mooney in the left side corner of the end zone, that throw was amazing. We've seen him throw across his body. We've seen him make all these elite type throws, but when he's not making the just throws and he's again below 50%, on his completion percentage. Like, these are things that are very troubling, and you can't even be a good quarterback, let alone an elite quarterback. And I saw him becoming an elite quarterback.
Well, so you said something that got me thinking. So in the draft process, you're ranking your quarterbacks. You're looking at their college tape. You're looking at the skill set. You're looking at how they read defenses and how they make adjustments and what types of throws they can make. You're looking at the combine. But ultimately, that player still goes to an organization. And we have a new regime here in Chicago, but we've never had the quarterback. So there's a lot of things maybe as an organizational, as an organization. So I'm not like blaming that all. Like, I don't know. He could have gone to any one of the 32 teams. And, well, there's certain teams obviously weren't going to pick Justin Fields. And Kansas City felt pretty good about having Mahomes. Right. And people want him, there's always this temptation to like, oh, he'll be Mahomes. No, it's not about comparing him to anybody.
No, I want Justin Fields to be Justin Fields.
Exactly. Use your skill set. Improve each week. And it's looking bad. Like, one of the things I really like about Justin Fields is just he seems to have confidence and like go on to the next play. It's about the next play. That's not how he's looking right now.
No.
Even like, and I hate to use it because I don't really like when this stuff gets talked about, but they show him on the sideline after the pick and he's looking mad at himself, but also looking kind of confused. And he's not talking to Getsy about what's the next thing. The camera goes away. Hopefully those conversations are happening, but we're not seeing it in the play.
Right. The lack of confidence that we've seen from him on the field, his confidence is like staggering off the field, right? Like, you're never going to hear a quote from Justin Fields like we have heard from Mitch Trubisky saying, hey, like, we're just going to turn the televisions off, right? Like, we're going to turn all the televisions off at Halas Hall. Like, you're never going to hear those types of quotes coming from him. He's a very confident guy. But you're not seeing that confidence on the field. Like, the whole time I was complaining about how... So, Justin Fields, as a quarterback at Ohio State, was more of a pocket passer than many people wanted to, relay into the NFL. Like, everyone was talking about his scramble ability, his ability to run, how fast he is. That's great. I like that too. I like the dual threat quarterback. I think that's amazing in today's NFL. But he was always more of a pocket passer compared to guys like Trey Lance or even Lamar Jackson. Okay. I don't see him throwing anywhere near the pocket right now. It's like as soon as he gets the ball, he's so uncomfortable. I don't know if it's a lack of trust for his offensive line. I don't know if it's a lack of trust of his receivers. Like, I don't know if it's a lack of trust in himself, the play calling, whatever it is. He just does not look comfortable, and you see it in the plays. He's bailing. He's taking hits, unnecessary hits that we've talked about.
When you have the quarterback that has it and has that confidence and has that, every next play is going to be the play that he's going to make a play kind of attitude, the rest of the team has that. Yeah. And if you look at, like, we're saying that it looks like he's waning in his confidence, the rest of the team is going to look that way. There are times where people are open and then his throw is a little off and then they're awkwardly. I mean, there was one to Mooney like that. There was one to the tight end. It wasn't Komet, although.
Was it Chase Allen?
It might have been. But there was just no rhythm to the passing game whatsoever. And obviously, the running game was just fine today. The defense played well. They were opportunistic. And Houston is a bad team.
Yeah, we said it. The Bears and the Chicago Bears did not win this game. The Houston Texans lost this game. No one can tell me otherwise. I know a win is a win in the NFL.
It had the looks of another tie, to be honest.
It did. And
it could have tied, and it would have just been like, yeah, that's good, because neither of these teams really deserves a win. Right. And with that Roquan Smith play at the end, it was too close for them to even blow it. I mean, imagine he makes that pick, but only runs it to, like, the 50. How do you think that game plays out? They still have all their timeouts.
You're punting.
Or we make a mistake. Yep. I mean, like, there would have been no faith or confidence that the Bears would have been able to move the ball and actually score.
And the coaching staff doesn't have faith in Justin Fields right now either, and they're showing it. And we saw it. And I'm blanking. I wrote it down.
I got it right here. There was a key drive in the second quarter. Yeah, 11 minutes and 50 seconds. And before the drive, we were saying Getsy needs to scheme an easy completion. Do you want to hear what they did? Or do you remember? I'll quiz you. I have it written down. So you tell me what you think they did.
Exact details, but I know they ran the ball 3 times.
The first one was a rush for 1 yard, and I think that was friendly. I think it might have actually been closer to 0. Next, they ran it, and all I wrote was rush for 1, rush for 3. I can't really remember the key details.
Sure.
3 straight rushes. Didn't even, 6 yards gained, punt the ball. And that was an opportunity to get something going. And you and I are calling it as just fans on a couch.
Yep.
And it's a lot. I get it. I'm not an offensive coordinator. I don't know the exact terminology or what they could have done. But I see other teams do these types of things. Yeah. We were talking about how Buffalo really doesn't have that good of a rush game, but some of their pass plays are basically rushes. Right. You see that with San Francisco. Granted, now it's Jimmy G instead of Trey Lance, which kind of gives them a whole different look. But a whole bunch of things have to change for this to look any better. And meanwhile, this is a 2-1 team that people are saying is supposed to have one of the top 5 picks in the draft. We kind of see why people are saying that, and yet they're 2-1.
Well, here's what's even more frustrating. So I projected them to be 2-1 at this point. And people ahead of the season were constantly saying, what do the Bears need to do to have a successful season? And most fans thought, 5 to 6 wins, but we see Justin Fields take that step. Right now, you're getting wins, and it's not because of Justin Fields. In fact, it's in spite of Justin Fields. This might be the worst outcome. Yeah. Because now your draft picks, and I'm not one to tank for draft picks, but now your draft picks going down, down. And Justin Fields isn't looking like he's it. And it's troubling because, again, you said it, I keep saying it, I think he has the ability to be a good quarterback in the NFL. But maybe something missing. I don't know.
And then I also want to take a step back and be like, it's 3 games.
And weird games.
Weird games, but you need to evaluate him on the course of the season.
Sure. Okay,
so there's still that. But there's just so many things to point to that are wrong. And I feel like these are everything we're listing. If not, the list has either grown or it's the same as it was last week.
Yeah.
We were talking about, hey, Getsy, find a way to really scheme Komet or Mooney into the game. And Komet finally made his first catch. It was for 20 yards. I think it was on a 3rd down. It was a big play. I think he had another.
He did. Yep.
But that's not really what we're talking about.
Team and receiving. Actually.
Right. But that's not. Neither one of them were like, okay, they're in the offense now. Right. So that didn't happen. Then we're talking about, hey, you can't just play action roll out. There's a guy waiting for you. We saw that 2 or 3 times. Yeah. And then bad sacks. Taking extra distance away. Luckily, Santos had a great game. So remember, Bob was here, I think. Bob was here when we said, I called him our pivotal player in a negative way because he almost blew the game, missing extra points. Bob said, when will you be worried? Are you worried about him? I said, no. Weather. If I'm talking about him again, I'm probably worried. I'm talking about him again, and I'm not as worried because he played really well. But then we're putting him into difficult situations with just more of the same.
They said he's 45% at making field goals at 50 or plus. And thank goodness he hit the one today.
But it's after you take a 9-yard sack on 3rd down.
Yeah.
And there was plays where 3rd and 10 from about the 35, you do a draw.
Yeah.
And you luckily get 5 yards, but I believe it was one where you almost got tackled for a loss. So then that was another time where they almost put him into 50-yard range instead of having any kind of confidence that we can pick up this first down. You can go through the league. There's all sorts of teams. Well, first of all, they don't put themselves in 3rd and 10, but they're in 3rd and 10, and they're thinking, okay, we still got you.
Right.
That's not how we feel with the Bears.
No.
Nor should we.
No, and we're not going to feel that way until they start putting it together. The Kool-Aid isn't tasting like Kool-Aid anymore. Because if you remember, I was drinking the Kool-Aid after that Browns preseason performance.
Yeah, but he threw, 2 picks? One was a horrible throw. Komet was wide open. Yeah. So, I guess that is what we're talking about. Scheme him open. They did. And he just misses him on the throw. Yeah. Another one downfield, 3rd and 6. And they didn't look like they ran any good routes. He threw it into double or triple coverage to Mooney. That was another pick. Yeah. So These aren't like getting tipped and picked, and it was like, oh, the stat sheet says he threw 2 picks. These were bad throws.
No, these were bad.
So, well, we want to take a break and then do a new segment we're going to try, as well as look at the Bears for next week against the Giants. So enjoy these ads. We'll be right back on the Halas Huddle.
All right, we are back. I hope you enjoyed the ads. We are going to introduce a new segment that we're going to use throughout the season that I haven't heard elsewhere. I know I don't listen to every podcast out there, but it's going to be the What the segment. And you fill in the blank there. And it's basically, what the were you thinking? And it could be anything that happened in the game. Typically, we're going to obviously lean more Bears than I think we would their opponents, but it could be coaching. It could be referees.
Yeah.
It could be the Monday Night Football crew that was in the preseason that was really bad.
That was a what the. So I think it's what the blank, but and we have the explicit rating, but I think that's more so if we just happen to slip. I try not to curse on this, but man, sometimes the Bears just bring it out of you, don't they?
That's true.
But before we go to the what the segment, I think we should just talk about today's game, some winners, some losers.
Okay.
I think already in the conversation we had breaking down the game, some of them are going to be pretty obvious. If it is and we've discussed it, we can move on, but maybe we can give kudos and have a brief conversation about some of those winners and losers that we bring up. So you want to start it off?
So obviously the big winner for today was Khalil Herbert. He had huge rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. You never want an injury to propel somebody into a winner's role, but you always want that guy next man up mentality. And Khalil Herbert definitely showed us that. He's coming off of a game where he had over 9 yards per carry versus the Packers. He is clearly projecting forward and looks to be, fitting into this offense very nicely.
Yeah. So it's everything you said is spot on. But it's funny because when you said obviously it is, you actually didn't take the guy I thought you were going to say. So that'll be my guy. Nice. But Herbert, it happened because of Montgomery's injury. But at the same time, if you've been paying attention, which we have been, we've known that this was coming, that he was ready to step into this role. It's why both of us who are both Montgomery fans kind of don't think they're going to re-sign him long term, unless it's a shorter term team friendly deal that he's I don't know. I just don't think they're going to sign him because Herbert's ready. So yes, he had a great game. He was a winner today. But when you said obviously the winner is, I'm going to say Roquan Smith. All eyes are going to be on him because he's an important player on this team. He's one of their captains, but also because of the hold in that ended with, we're done talking. I'm going to play, and I'm auditioning for 31, hopefully all 32. Hopefully the Bears are still in the – well, I say hopefully because I do think he's a very important player, and we saw it today. I believe he had 16 tackles. He had the key interception that clinched the win, and that kind of goes back to the days of a linebacker. I don't even want to say his name because I just don't like him anymore. But that kind of stat line where you're seeing tackles in the teens and then taking over a game and winning it. And some of those tackles are tackles for loss. Roquan Smith was a winner. Yeah. He was a winner in terms of leading them to the victory. But I think he's also a winner because this is the game he's going to point to and say, I'm that big time player. And he's going to need more of them. But
wasn't it him too on, I want to say it was a third down play where he got a tackle for loss that held them to a field goal early in the game too.
Yep.
So yeah, he was definitely all over the place. If you're going to give one to the offense and one to the defense, Roquan obviously would have been my defensive guy.
All right, so we hit one of each. Go ahead. Let's go with another.
You want another winner?
Either way, you can go winner or loser.
Okay, so the only other winner that I would throw out there, we mentioned him briefly, would be Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson, I think, is proving himself again. He's not obviously returning interceptions for touchdowns.
He wanted to. He intercepted on the back line. It looks like he wants to.
His foot went out, so they automatically called it the touchback. But yeah, I mean, Eddie Jackson would definitely be another one that I would throw out there.
I got a quick one.
Okay.
Dominique Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
He's shown up in all 3 games as a rookie, as a 5th-round rookie. And on this one, he took an inside move, which on the show that I did with Bob Weiss after the San Francisco game, his sack, which was a big one, came on an inside move. And all in the preseason, he looked like he was going to be this outside, use his athleticism and quickness and go on the outside. And he does an inside move, gets to the quarterback at the exact same time as Justin Jones.
Yep.
Justin Jones. And we were saying, like, that's the definition of a half sack. Like, they each just, they both deserve the full sack because they beat their guy and got there. But, so I'm going to give that Dominique Robinson a winner shout out there.
What I noticed, too, with Robinson, which is kind of cool, is they're actually rotating him both inside and outside. Like, he's been playing both, the defensive tackle position. I've noticed him sometimes next to Gibson. I've noticed him sometimes next to Robert Quinn. And then obviously they're also rotating him to the outside end position.
Yep.
So that guy's got some versatility.
It's
and
great to see.
Looking like a very solid pick.
Absolutely. So is it okay if I say a loser?
Yeah. My only other winner is myself. And the only reason I'm throwing this out there is Cole Kmet caught 2 passes, and I did not have to wear a baloney is correct t-shirt because Peter and I had this little bet going, and I threw it out there. I said, look, what happens if Kmet doesn't get another catch in week 3? What do I have to do? And he was going to make me a shirt.
Out of bologna?
No, that's like his handle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said it was made out of bologna, and
No.
I'm like, dude, I think we're all winners that we don't have to see that. That doesn't sound like it's too flattering, but
that'd be pretty bad.
I have shivers. So I think this is so you said, very obvious winner. There's a very obvious loser, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And I don't even like, calling people losers, but in this game, in terms of the long-term outlook and him taking that next step, I mean, it's, these are cliches at this point. This was a game that he needed to look good, gain his confidence. His stat sheet should have looked better because the stats coming into the game were like historically bad.
Yep.
They're saying this is the fewest pass. They showed like 28 pass attempts through 2 games. And in the whole Super Bowl era, it's only happened 6 times. And like 3 of them are the Bears, including this year's team. And 1 game was played in the monsoon. So like, there's always that, there's always going to be that game where, that's the reason they only threw 4 passes or whatever. But now through 3 games, I would say they still are probably historically low. And then you look at the bad efficiency, the interceptions, like this is really looking bad, Rob.
Yeah.
You have anything to add? Go ahead.
So prior to the game, I actually wrote an article that said that Justin Fields has no more excuses. And I'm done giving him excuses. Like, this is not on the coaching staff. This is not on the play calling. There are things that they do need to do. We've talked about it. There's things that we would do very differently to help bring him and the offense along. But this isn't a Matt Nagy offense. Like, Justin Fields was supposed to take a step forward today. He did not. Now it's on him. It's on him. The excuses are done. It's on him. He needs to just shut me up, shut everyone else up, go out there and put some stats out there. Like,
I'm going to give one excuse, one little one, and it's I'm trying to make a little bit of a joke here, so
sure.
It's still not that much of a difference. But the Bears ran, I want to say 2, maybe 3 jet sweeps where he hands the ball off to a receiver, and one of them worked really well.
Yeah, like 19, 20 yards.
Yeah. And you see these quarterbacks all the time, and some of the great ones, even Rodgers, even Mahomes, where they run the jet sweep, but it's in front of him, and so he throws it like
passing
3 inches in front of his face, and it's passing yards.
Yeah.
Which, in the stats, so I'm half joking, because I actually think those shouldn't count either. Like, maybe they need to make a rule where if the throw is behind the line of scrimmage, then you don't get then it's a run.
Yeah.
Not in terms of a fumble, I get that. Anyway, I'm going off the script there, but this is a bad game, and it's a win, which feels bad because, but hopefully, again, it's 3 games, but I can't keep saying that.
Yeah.
It's 1 game, it's 2, now it's 3 games, and he doesn't look confident. The stats don't look good, but somehow a victory still came of it.
Yeah.
So who do you have for a loser?
Not necessarily a loser. Again, I don't like to call these guys losers. These guys took another step bad.
A regression.
Now, in this case, this player actually took a progression over his week 2 week, but still struggled too much for me this week, and that was Kyler Gordon.
Oh.
He had one really, really standout play that honestly could have been a pick six had he wrapped rather than swatted the ball down. But did save a drive. It was a drive-ending play. But too many times there's just mistakes. And someone called me out on Twitter saying that one of the plays wasn't on him. He let a guy go. And the only guy that was there was a linebacker. And if you're going to let the wide receiver off to a linebacker, to me, that's either poor play calling by Alan Williams or Kyler Gordon made a mistake.
Right.
So to me, Kyler Gordon made the mistake. There's a couple other times where he thought he had safety help. The safety help wasn't there. Now, again, I don't know for sure. Maybe the safety was supposed to be there. But when you watch Kyler Gordon play, kind of reminds me of Justin Fields at times. He just kind of looked a little confused.
But he's a rookie. He's a legit rookie, first of all.
Yes, and you have to let these things go.
There was a play. He got pretty badly burned, but I wanted to also see more pressure. And I'm giving kudos to guys like Dominique Robinson. And I think Robert Quinn, although he didn't show up in the stat sheet today, got some good pressures, was held a whole bunch of times with no call. I don't want to be that fan, but there's so many times. And I know that the Bears under Eberflus are apparently not going to be a team that blitzes all that often. But if that's the case, that's going to put extra pressure on guys in coverage like Gordon.
Yeah.
And, he made some okay plays, some good plays. He goes for the ball, you can tell, but sometimes it's at the expense of the tackle. Right. I think this idea in the hits principle, or if you even think back to the Lovie Smith Bears of we're going to go for the ball, the peanut punch, all of that. Yes, but secure the tackles. Yeah. And so we still see a lot of that, and that's not good to see. So I would agree with you on Gordon. You were saying, no Jalen Johnson today, and they were just picking on guys like Gordon. They were picking on Vildor, who, again, made a couple good plays.
He's the reason that Eddie Jackson had the interception that stopped.
That's true. He tipped that one, but it was right after a play where he just, gave off coverage.
He also made a mistake on that play, but recovers in order to get the tip. So,
they missed Jalen Johnson. I believe even against Aaron Rodgers, he didn't even throw it one time in Jalen Johnson's direction, which shows the type of corner he is, the type of respect that they are starting to have for him, or the total lack of respect for the guy on the opposite side. So I agree with that. I got a loser here, and this guy did actually lose. Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith, looking like the old Lovie that doesn't know when to challenge. He did do one cool thing. I think it might have been on a Gordon play where he believed his guy got pass interfered. Yeah. And he's giving it to the ref, and he was getting kind of animated. We know Lovey's one of those guys, doesn't ever swear, and doesn't really
Tony Dungy.
Right. So it was funny. He's on the sideline giving that guy the business. The next play, they call a bad defensive hold on the Bears, and I'm like, Lovey getting the makeup call.
Jalen Jones.
But all in all, I just think, that's not a good team over there. But Lovey didn't do anything to help himself out. We talked about how this was a game Houston lost rather than the Bears winning. So I just had to say, hopefully Eberflus is going to be the coach that makes some good decisions, but his were all over the place. I couldn't decide. Eberflus looks like a winner to me because clearly with a team that's lacking in talent, he's got them at 2-1, but he looked like a loser in time management and in not using his timeouts. And so I got both coaches somewhat in the loser column.
So let's use that to segment into the new.
Absolutely. Let's pitch that.
Segue into the new segment, right? What the were you thinking? And I'm not going to use this one, but one that could be used there, and we already talked about it, is Matt Eberflus not using the timeouts. Insane to me. Completely insane. It, to me, shows you have no trust in your offense whatsoever. Maybe it worked in his favor because maybe they did make a mistake that would have cost them the game being this close. But you have to have faith in your offense. You have to have faith in your defense. If you don't have faith in your team, what are you saying to your team?
They were deep in their own territory. You do see teams sometimes take a knee and go into halftime in games where they just don't have it or the situation presents itself. but you had over a minute and you had all 3 timeouts. And what teams often do is they'll start with a handoff. If they get completely like smashed back and lose a yard, then they'll let the clock go and kind of run another play. But if you start actually moving forward, that's when they then say, okay, hurry up. Here we go. Get to the line. We have another play ready. Or you call timeout. They just look like, oh, whatever, like just let it go. And then you have the whole crowd booing you. And granted, this is all to say they come back and win the game. So things like that maybe don't look so bad. Like you said, maybe they would have thrown a pick 6 there and had no chance. But if you're thinking like that, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's a lack of faith in your team. So here, I got a what the, and then it came back and it was a what the again. And then I think it happened again and maybe there was a penalty or something. But my what the is, why can't Mustafa snap the ball to Fields? We talked about, hey, you need to be crisp. You need to, and it's looking crazy to me. So I don't know if Patrick just needs one more week and his hand's ready and he's a professional center. But my what the goes out to the basics of snapping a ball to the quarterback.
Yeah, well, we saw it twice against the Packers too, so this is a recurring problem. My what the goes to the defense. Happened twice today, and it's great to see that these guys are getting the ball out. You're knocking the ball out, but twice they were unable to come away with a recovery, and the one was late in the game, within the 10-yard line,
right,
of Houston's 10-yard line. I mean, that could have set up the game to win right there. We wouldn't have been, on the edge of our seats waiting for Roquan Smith to help.
And they weren't fighting the opponent for the ball. There are 3 Bears over the ball. It squirts out and actually gains another yard or 2, I want to say. Yeah. Well, either way, you recover that, you perhaps clinch the victory there.
Right.
You let them have it back, you could have lost this game.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely a good call there. Let's see. I don't know. I don't want to pick on Gordon again, but right coming out of the second half, my what the? Misses a tackle. They get a big play. I think they end up scoring on that drive. So that's a little quick, easy what the to Kyler Gordon for missed tackles. It's just not what you want to see. You start the first half with the fumble snap. You start the second half with a missed tackle that leads to a bigger play. And this is all, again, coming from a coach and a staff that's about the hits principle. Let's be careful. Let's be focused. We still don't see it. So that's my what the going out to Kyler Gordon.
I'll throw one other quick one out there before we segue into talking about next week. What were the refs seeing on the offensive and defensive line? So many times I saw false starts that weren't called. Guys that you could have called offsides. Maybe the guy jumped it perfectly a couple times. And Laramie Tunsil had multiple holding calls that just were not called. Frustrating to see. In fact, one of them was on a huge 3rd down pickup that we saw. And like you said, Robert Quinn's going to spin and he can't spin because he's being held.
I understand you can call holding on every play.
Sure.
But when it makes a difference, when it's right where the guy goes past, or when the quarterback would have been pressured but wasn't because the tackle is holding a guy, those are the ones that should be called. And I want to, I feel bad because when it happens against the Bears, then I'm just that's just me being a homer. There's times I'm seeing it not called against the Bears or in any other NFL game you turn on. So it's tough. I don't like games when there's a flag on every play and it's super choppy, but you can't miss certain calls that make a big difference like that. All right, so let's wrap this show up by talking about next week. Bears are going to go on the road to the New York Giants. New York Giants haven't played yet in week 3. So they have the Monday night game, I believe, in Dallas. I know it's against Dallas. I don't know if it's...
I think they're at home.
Okay, so they might have back-to-back home games. So they're going to be on slightly shorter rest, but they've looked surprisingly good through 2 weeks. A lot of that goes to the way Saquon Barkley is playing, almost as he was pre-knee injury. And then they also have a new coach. I don't remember, but he's a coach a lot of people wanted the Bears to go after in Dayball. And yeah, that's your guy, right? And he's an offensive-minded coach. So what are your thoughts on the Giants?
I wanted the Ryan Poles, Brian Daboll connection. I got half of what I wanted. So I'm
interesting.
hoping we'll see what happens with Eberflus, but I got half of what I wanted.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because here's the thing. The Bears are not going to be able to run all over the Giants like they were Green Bay and Houston. Like,
especially if it's just Herbert. You want to have Herbert and Montgomery going.
Right. And we are, as we already said, I have a feeling Montgomery will not be healthy enough for this game. Again, this is pure speculation. I'm not a medical professional, but just
you play one on podcast.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's just going to be one of those things where, like, Justin Fields is going to have to make an impact in this game. And if he can't do that, this is going to be a loss. And I originally had this, I've predicted this season so far correctly. I had them beating San Francisco, losing to Green Bay, beating Houston, and I have them beating the Giants. Now I'm kind of hesitant to stick with that. I don't know if I'm going to be taking the Bears in my pick'em next week.
Well, it's hard to win on the road in the NFL, and it's hard to win anywhere if you play how the Bears have been playing.
Yeah.
And yet they're 2-1. So I think there is something to, the defense has made enough plays in these games to be competitive and to win. We kind of talked about, like, we don't think there's a team that's going to get blown out a whole lot.
No.
I mean, I think even though the Giants, as we speak now, are 2-0, there's still a lot of questions. I mean, Daniel Jones isn't a quarterback that opposing teams look at like, oh boy, we have no chance in this one. I mean, he's a little bit ahead of Justin Fields in terms of his development, but I don't think they're feeling very confident that he's for sure the answer. Like I said, Saquon is a thing to be very worried about because even today the Bears' rush defense it was questionable, and against the Packers it was non-existent. So I'm worried about that aspect of the game. But like you said, we're still at the same point we were coming into this week. This should have been the game to build the confidence, and it wasn't.
Yep.
And so now you're going to go against a tougher defense on the road, and we still haven't seen anything out of Mooney, anything out of Fields, not very much out of Kmet. Maybe you're down Montgomery. I'm hoping Jalen Johnson's back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to worry about here.
Now, hopefully Velus Jones is back.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? Like, that would be a nice little spark because he was trending, right? He was a DNP on Wednesday. He practiced as a limited participant on Thursday and Friday. So if he can get back next week, maybe that's the spark they need.
Right. You're starting drives at the 40 because of a good run instead of your back. I mean, basically, every time they would take a touchback on a kickoff, I'm high-fiving you because we get to be the 25. Otherwise, it's the 17, so.
And is he also maybe the guy that gets that wide receiver bubble screen that can turn it into, 30 yards? Like,
I said it last week, it's great to have you back because I don't know. I want to keep bouncing back to things I said, but it wasn't to you. Hopefully you were a loyal listener. We need to. It's hard to miss something you haven't seen, but the hope is there.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that's the same way I feel about Fields. It's the same way I feel about Mooney as your number one. Oh, the hope is there. So far, the results are not.
No.
So it's going to be a tough game. It'd be great to get a win because then your season predictions will be right on. You're probably the only person in America, I think, who would have the correct sequence through 4 if the Bears are able to pull off a win next week against the Giants.
That would be pretty awesome.
So, I'm giving you credit for that. I don't know if that's actually true, but there can't be many.
Probably not. Especially not in the national media.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, which now the Bears have 2 wins. And I tweeted this out prior to this game that they had 1/3 of their wins with still 88% of the season to go. But the national media didn't project them winning more than 3.
Right.
They've already now have 2/3 of those wins.
Yes.
With probably like 85%.
And
of the season.
And they were in sole possession of the NFC North first place for about 10 minutes because the Minnesota game rallied and beat the Lions. So they're also 2-1 and obviously a lot more talented.
Yeah. And I would think they have the tiebreaker technically because they beat now 2 NFC North.
True. Yeah. I mean, don't confuse what I just said with me saying the Bears are taking the North and never giving it back. That'd be a heck of a surprise. But again, that better come with Fields looking the part. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know what we have. So
no one does.
All right, Rob. It was great having you back.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to miss any more, right?
Not that I'm projecting.
Knock on whatever you need to knock on there. But great having you back. And Bears won. I almost felt like they didn't.
Yeah.
2-1 Bears. All right. Have a great week, everyone.
Bear down. Halas Huddle. Woohoo.